That's the end of your issue. Your issue is over. It's done. You can go about the rest of your life. When I get my money, yes, my money issue is over. But, if you want to go invest in, say something like a modeling agency, or you want to put out a clothing line, or you want to do something in big business, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do so than me. You can go buy a sports team if you had enough money. For me, it's not going to be as easy, because I'm black. And this is one of the issues she try to put out in, her videos. It's another thing I think you should watch to really understand. I mean, Jane Elliott, she go hard, and she don't pull no punches. And those, little experiments that she do, I think helped a lot of people. And I think a lot of people need to see them and check them out. But, I don't want to drag this video on for too long. And, this is something that I wanted to put out because I did the video about white America and why they don't like the African American community. I mean, come on, it's obvious. And that's one of the issues. That's one of the major issue we have is our problem is so obvious, and it seems like it's being ignored, and white America doesn't want to see the issues that we face, on a day-to-day. And unless, you understand that we are going through this trying time, and we have been, since slavery, then you'll never understand why we have the issues that we have.
Well, does so-called white America not only not understand the issues of policing in black communities, but doesn't want to? That's the claim by Tim Wise, journalist and author, who says that in 1962, 85% of whites said that black children had just as good a chance as white children to get a good education in their communities, a claim so self-evidently absurd in retrospect that it calls into question the ability of whites to perceive even the most elemental realities of the country in which they lived. I spoke with Tim Wise earlier, and I asked him to explain that statement.
It's one thing in 2015 to believe that the United States is a post-racial country. You can almost understand why people would think that, because we have these outward signs, outward manifestations of progress. But the point is, even in the early 60s, before the civil rights laws, when we were still a segregated country, really an apartheid state, white America, by and large, didn't see the problem, even though it was on their television screens every night. I mean, that's the year of the March on Washington, 1962, the year before that, actually. So the fact that white America has consistently, even when things were obvious in retrospect, not seen the problem, tells us that we have a significant gap in perception between white America on the one hand, people of color on the other. And I think that is what we're seeing with the uprising in Baltimore, in Ferguson, all around the country, that people of color are experiencing the country one way, and therefore they perceive its institutions one way. White America perceives it differently because, by and large, we're experiencing it differently. It isn't that we are uncaring, unconcerned, or mean and evil people. It's that being white means never having to know the reality of those who live a very different experience. And that, to me, is the core of our problem in this country.
20, 30, 40 years from now, do you think the people in this country will look back on this particular time with the same retrospect that we look back into that civil rights era with?
I think it's very possible. I mean, right now, the numbers are very clear that for most white Americans, even though there seems to be some emerging consciousness around police misconduct and criminal justice system disparities, it's very much like it was in the early 60s. There's a core of white folks who seem to be getting that and acting in solidarity with the movement to change that and to make that better, but a vast majority who seem to be completely checked out. So hopefully we'll be able to not have to take 30 or 40 years to see what's right in front of us. Hopefully we can narrow that time frame, because otherwise we're just going to keep repeating these cycles of denial and consternation and anger and hostility rather than coming together to fix the problem.
Certainly so. I want to ask you about this other portion of your article. You talk about the fact that in white America and within white sections of America, there are riots. And you say we do burn our own communities and we do riot for far less valid reasons than any for which persons of color have ever hoisted a brick, a rock, or a bottle. And you bring up things like riots after football games, basketball games, even that pumpkin festival that happened in New Hampshire, how vastly different that is covered by media and perceived by the public versus what we saw in Baltimore, for instance.
Right. I mean, when white folks riot, whether it's after a football game or because Penn State fired Joe Paterno, who had, basically covered up for a child molester on his staff for years, or whether it's Woodstock 99, the music festival in 1999, where, there were literally rapes, assaults, robberies going on in the mosh pit during the concert. White folks, if that had been black folks at a hip hop show in New York City or anywhere else in the country, it would have been looked at as a cultural pathology. So part of our problem is recognizing that a lot of the behaviors that we ascribe to low income folks, particularly poor folks of color, are just as common among middle and upper middle income white folks, but we don't perceive them the same way. Riots are one, drug use is another. The drug rates, for example, in this country are overwhelmingly identical between white folks and people of color. And yet, when it comes to drug arrest, people of color 3, 4, 5 times more likely to be arrested. So we have to de-racialize the idea of pathology. And unfortunately, the media, in terms of how they portray Baltimore and Ferguson and all of these uprisings against police misconduct, have continued to further a narrative that says those people are pathological, they're the violent ones, they're the dangerous ones, rather than looking at this as a larger systemic phenomenon.
Again, we don't have a problem with white America. White America has a problem with us. It can be solved by white America. We have been trying to do it peacefully for years. We marched, we prayed, we did everything. Kissed ass, sold out. Black people done did everything to try to get the white man to accept them, and it's like, it's not happening. So, of course we're going to get angry. And of course today, educated black people are saying, oh, fuck them. We're not trying to get y'all to accept this no more. We kicking in the door. And it's like we get into this point where it's, we're going to go from a rational, okay, I'm going to sit back and be nonviolent. And we're trying to be rational, but eventually, the state of African Americans, it's going to snap. And it's going to be violence, and it's not going to be good. And hopefully it never comes to that point. But I think if it does, we will be justified in our actions. It would be totally justified if it went to that point. But hopefully it never goes there, because we don't need a bunch of, violence in the street and a bunch of negativity. But unless white people stop, turning their backs and looking the other way and acting like this stuff is not happening, it's never going to get fixed. So, as I said, by the end of the video, which this is the end of the video, you should have a clear understanding that white America alone can fix the issue. And we have already been at the table for years, and we have been willing to fix the issue, because, come on, at the end of the day, we want the same thing. You want to raise your family and live a good life. We want to raise our family and live a good life. And we both want the same things. But there's this government system that's in the middle of both of us, and it's keeping us separated so they can control us. And we see it as African Americans. It just seems like, white America doesn't want to see it. You play this whole role like, I don't care because I'm on the winning team. My team is winning, so I don't care what happens to these other people. And that seems to be the mindset of some white people that, that's willing to look the other way while other people get treated like shit. And some people cool with that, some people not. But like I said, at some point, and this is the point, we fed up, and something is going to happen, and you getting African Americans with this mindset that all white people are evil. And no matter what I say, no matter what people say, it's hard to convince them that that's not the case, when it just seems like the majority of white America don't give a shit. They only act like they give a shit for publicity or because they are in the presence of an African American. So black people is getting fed up, and it's going to lead to something big. And it seems like the media is trying to egg it on and push it to that point. That's going to lead to some kind of, war. And like I said, hopefully that never happens. But again, when it's all said and done, if it ever came to a court, it would show clearly that it's not us. And I'm not just saying that because I'm black. If it was us, I would say, hey, it's us. Our issues that we have, of course, African Americans, we got our shit. We got our problems that we need to fix. But those problems is not the cause for the racial divide in America. So, at the end of the day, if something is not done, if we don't come together, and I'm happy to see that, a lot of white people is walking with those Black Lives Matter sign, and a lot of white people starting to look and understand what's taking place. As Jane Elliott did in The Experiment, she said, hey, stand up if you want to get treated like us. And nobody stood up. So as she said in the video, that means you understand we are being treated unfairly and you are doing nothing about it. So it seems like somebody likes to see us in this state, and that's what we're seeing. We are seeing that, well, wait a minute, we thought everything was cool, we had an agreement here, but it seems like because of your inaction that you like what's happening to us. So we have to defend ourselves, and that's what we have been doing, you know, for centuries, is defending ourselves against the hatred and the dislike that white America has for African Americans. Now, this is my video, and hopefully I got my point across so you can understand, you know, what our issue is that we have, and that's that we are just trying to protect ourselves. We are just trying to, you know, be successful and advance as a race, as a people. We're not trying to step on nobody's toes. We don't want no issues. We want what's fair, and it's not being given to us. It's not, you know, and we are being hindered from getting that. You know, we're not trying to take it by force. We're trying to do it respectfully. So this is my video, and hopefully, you know, any white person that may have watched the entire video understands what's going on, and it's going to do further research or do their part to help bridge the gap. But thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next video.